Welcome to the Breakthrough to Your Best Success online event. Join your host, Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino, and the contributors from the Success Guidebook and other special guests to visualize, actualize, and amplify you and your best success. This conference will help you redefine success, transform your goals, embrace change, design and realize your best life, and much more.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Breakthrough to Your Best Success Conference. I'm Elizabeth, here with Congressman Rick Keller. Rick, how are you?
Good to be with you.
Good. Thank you so much for being here. It's a big celebration of the book. And I've got questions about success for you because I know it's such an honor to have you in the book and to talk about some of the things that you know to help us all be a little bit more successful. I was on a show the other day and somebody said, I just had Rick on and he's so funny.
Oh, that's nice. Awesome.
I just had to tell you that before we got into everything. But that sense of humor is paramount, isn't it, with success?
I think it absolutely is important. I think not only is it important to help you connect with other people, but I think it's just important for your own resilience, not to take life that seriously. And not to take everything personal.
Yeah, but that's not what we had you in the book for exactly. Although I just want people to know how funny you are. Like you could almost be a stand-up comedian. Have you ever tried stand-up comedy? I would think you'd be so good at it.
Well, thank you. I did do a TED Talk on humor, the power of self-deprecating humor, which was a lot of fun, which is essentially a stand-up that's G-rated, so to speak. So I love it.
How has your perspective of success evolved through life?
My definition of success is just very simple, and that is using your gifts for the greater good. I have found that all of us have some gift, and by that, something that comes very easy to us and that we're good at. And if I use it every day, I'm personally happy. So for me, humor and speaking come easy. And then the greater good part is that it gives my life more meaning if I'm somehow doing it for something beyond myself. And so I feel like using your gifts for the greater good is about the best definition of success you can have. I would rather use my gifts for the greater good and make X dollars a year than $1 billion a year.
Yeah, we're trying to get away from that data analytics, that measurements and all this stuff and talk about things in a different way. So I love that definition. And I think people think that's really useful. What made you say yes to being in the book?
Well, I liked you, and you had interviewed me earlier, and I read your first book, The Change Guidebook, and I thought it was awesome. And I was just honored to be a part of this book. And I love the topic that you sent me, networking, which is something I'm passionate about. Yeah,
I noticed that. And I if we could for a moment, if we could depart from my book and go over to your book, that would be really helpful. Both authors with HCI, and you've written a book. Do you want to talk about that? I don't know if you have a copy around you or anything like that, but Chase the Bears is a great book.
I wrote a book, Chase the Bears, and little things you can do to achieve big dreams. And essentially my mission was to lift people up and bring people together. And so the first part of that is designed to help lift you up, encouraging to use your gifts and how to do some baby steps to get to where you want to go. And then the second point, bringing people together, is a lot about rules of civility and how to go through life so other people are helping you. And there's a lot of collection of stories. I find for me, I learn a lot easier through stories than I do statistics or scholarly research. And so that's how every chapter has a concept, but I use stories to illustrate it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do too. And that's the way I learn. I don't know if everybody learns that way, but I sure appreciate introducing a concept and then showing us that we're not all alone learning it and that maybe somebody else has been through it or whatever and can kind of help with the flight path there.
Yeah, absolutely.
How has the notion of success guided you in making big decisions, life decisions, maybe any kind of decisions for that?
Well, my notion of success has guided me in making life decisions. So, for example, I was going to be a doctor, and my mom and dad were so proud of that. But I worked at a VA hospital for selfish reasons, just to look good for med school. And I hated it. I hated everything about it. It wasn't my natural skill. I didn't like science. I didn't like blood or the broken bones. I was luckily an A student and was first in my class, but I hated every aspect of it. And my natural gifts were along the lines of speaking and humor, and that lent itself to a career in law and politics. And I think my mom hoped that I would be a doctor. When I told her I was choosing the two least trustworthy professions in America, she said, "Why don't you just get it over with and be a used car salesman, Rick?" But it guided me because I still wanted to do something for the greater good, just like a doctor helps people. But I wanted to do it using my gifts of humor and communication. And so it definitely played a role in the forks in the road in my life.
One of the things that I definitely never feel when I'm in your presence is that any part of you doesn't have integrity or character or anything like that. That's you. And you picked politician, and sometimes those two things aren't, there's stigmas about it and things like that, but it's so not who you are. How do you maintain that, or is it just you just stay authentically you? I just really wanted to ask you about authentically you, because you seem like, to me anyway, that you're that way. You're so authentic.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think if you look at the people who are truly good at it, much better than me, like Abe Lincoln, they're authentic and they're there for the greater good. And I think one of the things to make you a good congressman is you need to go up there to be authentically yourself and vote your conscience. And you have to be willing to lose your seat in Congress. And if you're not willing to lose your seat in Congress, there's very little reason for you to be there, because you'll go up there and you'll just put your finger to the wind and this is what the voters want. I'll vote that way. And I've always said, you know what, I owe the voters my best judgment. And so I'm always going to vote what I think is the best judgment. And if I'm wrong and you don't like it, then vote me out. But I'm not just going to do what's convenient or vote because someone gave me a certain amount of money. I went there with a mission. My particular mission was helping poor kids go to college because I needed help going to college. And it was relatively easy for me just to do the right thing. And I was only there for 8 years, wasn't there forever, and so back in the private sector.
Will you go back into politics? Is that something that interests you, or are you staying where you're at?
Right now I feel it's my mission to lift people up and bring people together through speaking and writing, and mostly speaking. If I felt a calling to get back in it, I would. But I don't really feel the need to it right now. When I ran the first time, I really felt called to do it. Like that was part of my mission. And I'm not hearing that right now. If I did, I would certainly answer the call. But I'm not really interested in it for the power or the fame or the title. I'm 59. I got a few years left on this planet. I just want to serve the greater good, to do what little I can to make the world better.
Sometimes we miss our goals, or we don't achieve our goal, fall short, it's not what we imagined, all those things. Can you talk about a time when you had to persevere through that type of disappointment in your life? The book is filled with lots of perseverance and lots of, we're going to keep going and ignore naysayers and all those things you have to do. Can you share a story about that in your own life?
Sure. I'll talk about my greatest failure. I lost an election. It only happened to me once, but I lost because Obama carried my district, and it's heavily Democrat area, and I was Republican. I was swept out like every other Republican in a swing district, and it was something that you shouldn't take personally, because that's how wave elections are. But I definitely took it personally. I felt rejected. I took an antidepressant. I had to go to counseling. I never had those problems. And the funny thing is, on my first day of work, they assigned me the most trivial little case, a rear end collision. And I call up the client. I say, "Hey, I'm Rick Keller. I'm going to be your lawyer defending this case." And he goes, "Oh, Rick Keller, did you know that there was a congressman named Rick Keller?" I go, "Yeah." "Did you ever hear of him?" I go, "Yeah." Did you ever meet him?" I'm like, "Yes." And he goes, "Are you him?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "Oh my God, this must be so humiliating for you to work on such a small case." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you."
Wow, thanks.
Then I go to lunch, and somebody comes up to me at lunch, and I know entourage, just me by myself for the first time in years. And somebody comes up to me and goes, "Hey man, do people ever tell you kind of look like that guy, Rick Keller?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they do." And he goes, "I bet it makes you mad, don't it?" I'm like, "Dude, it is me, fool." And he's like, okay, looking good. You look fat on TV, man. You looking good, So I'm like, what a hell of a day, But
Oh my God.
the way I got through it is I just learned just not to take stuff personally. Like, we all have setbacks. Don't take things personally. And I ended up turning this negative into a positive. Instead of raising money 4 hours a day. I always wanted to give a TED talk. I always wanted to write a book. And now I was free to do the things that I always wanted to do with my time frame. So hopefully it made me more rounded, more empathetic, wealthier, wiser. In some ways I felt like I had to go down to go up.
To kind of, I always say we need earplugs and bubble wrap all day long, like earplugs and bubble wrap. And I've equipped our kids with earplugs and bubble wrap. I'm like, this is for your naysayers, and this is because it's really bumpy out there, And
I like it.
It's hard though, because the words creep in.
Yes.
Things that people have said to you in the past creep in. It's like, oh no, get out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you have any wise advice for that?
I do. I think there's 3 things we need to do in terms of dealing with other people. Number 1, I think we have to listen with an open mind. Don't just listen for the flaw, but literally listen to what they have to say with an open mind. Number 2, I think we need to act respectfully despite differences, even though they don't deserve it, even though you don't feel like it. And number 3, the biggest thing, I think when someone says something to you offensively, you feel attacked, just like a saber-toothed tiger would attack you. And this amygdala kicks in and you have this fight or flight. And what I encourage people to do is just pause 6 seconds. Just pause. That's how much time it takes for the chemicals to dissipate and it switch to the front of your brain. And if you take some time just to pause and so respond rather than react, I think you'll avoid a lot of the mistakes. And I think a lot of the things that you can realize, oh man, that was pretty nasty, but it wasn't personal to me. I don't know what's going through that guy's life. Maybe his kid was diagnosed with cancer, or his wife decided to divorce him, or his dog died. I don't know what's going on, but I know it sure as hell doesn't have anything to do with me. And you just need to pause and take a deep breath and then respond.
Yeah. Sometimes you go, is that true?
Yeah.
Then you have to kind of ask, like I'll ask my husband, I'm like, this just got said to me. Is that true? And he'd be like, no, no. Yeah, whatever it is. Maybe it could be a little, you could improve there a little bit or whatever, who knows. But it's frustrating when it seems like we're in this mode. Like sometimes at 8, I'm 55, sometimes I'm even terrified to like post a picture of myself. I'm like, here we go, kind of thing. It's scary out there. So anyway, but thank you for sharing that story. I think that helps people, again, not feel alone in whatever it is we're all going through or is going on. The most elusive aspect of finding success seems to be having success encompass like all areas of our life. I am like a really big teacher of comprehensive success, meaning we don't just aim for the stars and let everything else go. Especially with our children and things like that. I'm like, yep, you can play baseball, but let's talk about a degree, just things like that. Can you talk about that approach to success? Is it something you believe in? Do you think you can balance? Do you think it's comprehensive? Or do you think sometimes you're this way or another way? And then the other part of that, the second part before you answer, is sometimes people have been like, well, if you had my 20-year-old self on here, I might say something different.
Yeah. So I think having enjoyment in all parts of your life, your personal romantic life, the things you like to do, like I like motorcycle riding and going to comedy clubs, and then your work life, I think they're all important. I think they're all equally important. However, what I have learned is, at least Rick Keller, I can only do one thing at a time. Yeah. So for example, if I have a big trial coming up, it's going to be me working about 100 hours a week. And I'm not going to win Father of the Year award that year. I'm not going to that week. And I'm not going to win Husband of the Year that week. But once that trial is over and I take my wife on a cruise, I am all in, 100% there for her. And so I try to have that balance. I find I can't do it all at once, but I can rank them all equally important. And when I'm doing that particular thing, I'm all in. I'm not going to be sitting on my stupid phone, checking my text for work or looking around to see what else I could do. It's one thing at a time, but I value all of them.
I like that answer. That's how we operate in our 25-year marriage. It's like, okay, I know I'm going to sit down and be writing this book and be totally distracted, but I'm definitely not going to win, Wife of the Year right now. Like what you said, but I'll take a break and then we'll go do something or whatever, or he'll have something come up. We all trade often like that. But I like what you just said there. That's really, I think, helpful for people to keep in mind that the moment passes and then you can be completely fully present, but you can put your energy towards your success in that moment, because otherwise it's hard to focus. Like it's really hard to sit down and write a book.
Oh, very
hard. It is blinders on, writing kind of thing. And I think it's also hard because you get ideas in the middle of the night, in the morning, in the shower while you're walking, and it's distracting.
Yeah, and I found, you've written a lot more than I have, but for me, in terms of the quality of the work, it's only good in the morning. Like I can only write well 7 to 10. Whatever I write at night when I come home at 9 or 10 o'clock is just crap. It's just I have no energy. I just have no juice. And so for me, it's you got to do it early. You got to say, hey, I got a lot of energy right now, and this is where it's got to go.
Yeah, same thing. 5 a.m. It's like, okay, I'm up. And you get mad at yourself too. You're like, oh, darn it, I wish it wasn't this way, but I am. Yeah, it is what it is. Okay, one more question, and I think you kind of answered it earlier, but we'll just go ask the question anyway. How does authenticity and integrity factor into achieving success and maintaining success over the long haul?
I think authenticity is the number one most important thing. And you know what? I think the enemy of authenticity is perfection. I think we have been groomed our whole lives to present this perfect image to the outside world. Fake it till you make it. Never let them see you sweat. Put your best foot forward. And I think the truth is exactly 100% the opposite. I think we connect with people by being vulnerable and authentic and real. And that's how we let people in. And that's how we connect with people and make them want to help us, not pretending to be perfect like all these people on Facebook. Just be human. They don't expect you to be perfect. They just expect you to be human. And if you're authentic, you'll never have to recall what you said. You're always going to know what you said. It's always going to be real. I think you still have the obligation to say it with a little finesse and make sure you don't hurt anyone's self-esteem. When they ask you, how do you like the meatloaf? I think I wouldn't lie and say I love it if I didn't, but I would say, you know what? I really appreciate you doing the meatloaf, but your spaghetti is still my favorite. I just encourage people to be authentic all the time. Not because I think it's a superpower or anything. I think it's going to help them connect with people. And at the end of the day, we need other people to help us get where we're going to go.
Yeah, I so agree with you. I think that fake you doesn't do us any good. I mean, that doesn't help the world. Authentic you helps the world. But yeah, no, I like that. In Chase the Bears and the Success Guidebook, you talk about networking, and that is one of your superpowers. I love having you in the book, and you're right there with Dr. Ivan Misner, who founded BNI and all these things. Talk about the power of networking.
Well, yeah, I think networking is a dirty word for a lot of people, and they think of it as some BSer backslapping guy who's authentic and wants to get something for nothing as quick as possible. And if that's what it was, then I would think the same way. But I think there's 3 rules that can make you good at networking. And then for people who are introverts, I think there's 3 things on top of it they can do. But the 3 rules are, number 1, for new contacts that you meet, I wouldn't ask them for any favor for a year, so people don't want to be used. And that kind of puts pressure on the relationship. Number 2, I would always want to make it mutually beneficial. You don't want someone where you're always asking them to pick you up at the airport, and if someone is rich and famous and you think, well, what can I do, for them? Well, you could ghostwrite an article for them and put their name on it and get credit, and you could introduce them to people, or maybe you have a strength and physical conditioning that they don't have. And number 3, I think, is hang out with quality people, just quality people. And that way, if they can never, ever help you down the road and you can never help them, you haven't wasted your time because you wanted to hang out with them anyway. And then for introverts, and this comes up a lot with them, I think there's 3 things they can do. Number 1, imagine that it's your party. How would you act if somebody's coming to your house? You would greet them at the door. You would introduce them to other people. You would say, this is what you guys have in common. You both have sons who play on the baseball team, etc. Number 2, I think you should ask people about their hobbies. So, for example, people always assume because I'm a lawyer and I'm a politician that I love talking about law and politics, and that's all they talk to me at a party. I don't like talking about either one, to be honest with you. What I like talking about motorcycles, college football, comedy. I love plays. If you just ask me, I would tell you, and then you won't you can't shut me up at that point, and it'll be easy to have a conversation. So rather than presume, what someone wants to talk about with their interest, just ask them. And then third, I would say for introverts is just tell yourself, I only have to go for 10 minutes. So it's not going to be the end of the world. I only have to go for 10 minutes, this thing, the Chamber of Commerce meeting or whatever. I think you'll find once you get there, you'll stay longer. But if you have these 3 little arrows in your quiver, I think it's going to make you a better networker and a more authentic networker.
Yeah. How do you go up to somebody at an event like that and say, what are your hobbies? I mean, do you just flat out say that? Or because I notice at those things, I was talking to Dr. Ivan Meisner about this. I came back from an event. I'm like, I'm exhausted. I feel like everybody was just trying to sell me stuff.
Yeah.
If he asked me anything about me,
right.
We're fine, whatever. But they're just pitching, come
right.
get it. And I'm like, I don't think I would even have enough money in the world to buy all 150 things they were selling me, because some of them were really expensive. And he's like, it's important when people are trying to sell to not be that way. And he goes, good for you. You didn't do that. And I never know at things like that, if you're supposed to talk to people about work or if you're supposed to talk to people about who they are at home. It feels like, you're not supposed to ever ask anybody personal. And I'm like, well, if it's not personal, then what is it? I don't get it.
So let's you and I have a pretend conversation for 15 minutes. And I'm just coming up to you at a party and I go, hi, Elizabeth, I'm Rick. What do you do?
Yeah. I'm probably going to tell you, I'm not going to say I'm a best-selling author. I'm going to say I bake cookies. Okay. 100 times over, I'm going to tell you that I make really good chocolate chip cookies.
Right. Okay.
Talk about my work.
So you bake cookies. I know I happen to know your author. I would then say, what do you like to do when you're not baking cookies or writing books? What do you like to do?
Yeah, probably garden. Okay, so I get it. Yeah. You just go on and on.
What do you do when you're not working? And just think about it. I think that's the easiest way. And I invented that technique, the direct technique, on my own, not from reading any networking books, and that I would be flying back and forth to Washington. And at the end of the day, when I was coming back from Washington, D.C. to Orlando, I've been working 8 hours a week. The last thing I want to do is just talk about politics. And I don't even want anybody to know what I do. And so I'm so tired. What I learned is that if I don't have time for clever conversation or energy, I just decided to ask people, what are you passionate about? What do you like to do? And blah, 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 blah. They'd be off to the races for 2 hours. And it made my job so easy. I'm like, that's the secret. Once you find someone's passion, they can talk about it forever. And if you share that passion, it makes it even easier. But if you don't share it, you can still go, oh, that's interesting. What's that like? What's that like baking cookies? How'd you get that recipe? And how what's your secret?
Yeah, great grandma. And they actually, you know what? They actually won the Cumberland Fair.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Chocolate chip cookies won the main Cumberland Fair. It's pretty hilarious. Anyway, so okay, that is really helpful. I hope everybody plays that back, and I hope that's your next book, like just pure networking. You should do way more videos on networking. That is so helpful, because everybody wonders what to say. And all people do is sell. Like, hey, do you have a new fence? I'm like, oh, this is the most boring thing ever, kind of thing.
Well, did you see the movie Wolf of Wall Street by chance?
I did. Yeah.
So there's a scene in Wolf of Wall Street where the lead character, he's always handing a pen to someone. He goes, sell me the pen, sell me the pen. And people just start trying to sell him all the benefits of the pen, and they get it wrong. What you should do in that situation is just ask you questions. So Elizabeth, how long have you been in the market for a pen? What kind of pen do you like? Do you like the metal pen? Do you like black pen? Do you like red pen? Just get information from them and ask them questions. And then once you have those questions, you can meet their needs. Okay, well, you want a pen that's not super expensive, that's blue ink. I happen to have that. Or if I don't, I'll just tell you. But I think that the key is getting information, being a listener. I think that's the most important part to being persuasive, because I find if you listen intently and you open your mind, that's the best way other people are going to open their minds to you. And if you come in with the attitude of what's in it for me, and sale, I think you're going to turn people off.
Yeah, it's obnoxious. I totally agree. Yeah. I'll meet people in LinkedIn, right? And the
Oh, yeah.
instant, like 5 minutes later, maybe even 2 minutes later,
Yes.
hey, I'm like, oh, I've got to shut this function off.
I know. I know.
And
I
I'm
know.
so opposite in LinkedIn. If I meet somebody, I'm like, tell me all about you. This is cool to meet you. Who are you? And
Yes.
and some people kind of get rude, like, you can read all about me on my website. I'm like, no, I'm trying to
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Or
but
it's the, yeah.
okay, I'll go to your website. But I was trying to talk to you.
Yeah. Or yeah, that'd be, send you something, hitting you up. And then there's the next email, which is, I don't know if you got my email or not.
Yeah.
It slipped through the crack. And number 3 is, if you're not interested, tell me yes or no. I demand an answer. And then number 4 is, well, tell me what you're obviously not the person. And I'm like, does this work? Because I see the same formula over and over, and it is obnoxious. So I have to unfriend them because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be you don't even know what my needs are, and you're hitting me up for all this.
Yeah. It makes being on LinkedIn tough. Yeah. Especially the virtual this and that. Yeah. That's hard. So anyway, all right. Well, that's very helpful. I'm so glad to be your pal, and thank you for your friendship through I think I've known you for a couple of years now. And
Yes.
it's fun to get to know you more and more. And I knew you liked motorcycles, but I didn't know you liked college sports or college football.
College football, especially.
Oh yeah.
And I like that. I know your sons are baseball players. I like baseball too, but in terms of just actually going to a game, nothing more I like better than college football.
What's your favorite college football team?
So I didn't go to UCF, University of Central Florida, but that's who I adopted. It's our local team in Orlando, and they have the world's best offense and the world's worst defense. And it's the same every year. So every game is 72 to 68, and sometimes we're up somewhere or not, but they're just an exciting, fun team.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up with the Hawkeyes, so I'm a Hawkeye.
Okay. Oh,
I love the
great.
way the Hawkeyes and all that stuff. So yeah. All right, good to know, because we love our college sports here. And I was a heartbreaker with Clemson losing yesterday. I'm like, oh no, the baseball. So
Yeah.
that was tough. But anyway, thank you, Rick, for being here. I'm so happy to have you in the book. Can you tell our listeners what your website is and what your book is again, and where to find you in social media?
Sure. It's rickkeller.net, just spelled RIC. Keller.net, and you can find my book either on Amazon. It's called Chase the Bears, Little Thing to Achieve Big Dreams, or on my website, rickkeller.net.